Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today we are going to discuss the difference between local functions and functions. So let's go into a script right now, script service, and let's look at what they look like. Alright, so local function, and then let's just say ice cream, and then we have another function, a global function, and then we have, let's just say, sandwich. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? Pretty much this local function right here is much more efficient for your system. Well, it's more beneficial because by setting anything in a local function, you're setting the variable to something and it's definite. For example, let's say if we have a value inside of our script. Okay, actually let's rename our script. I'm tired of just seeing the word script. Let's name this donut. Let's name our script donut. And so let's just put a variable or a value inside of here. So let's search a value and let's get an int value. Why not? And then we'll call this test. We'll call this test. So let's identify this thing. Local test equals script wait for child test, because it might not be loaded in yet, you know, when the game starts. And so we could set this local variable to a value, and it will automatically be saved. So this value inside of here, so if we put like maybe 20, this basically turns this value into the number. So this basically means local test equals 20. Okay, and usually when they make configurations, this is basically what a configuration would look like. They would have it in a configurations folder, which looks like this. Let's get a configurations folder, configurations, and then they'll have the value in there, and then they usually just get the value because there's no point of just getting the value by itself. So let's get configuration. So script wait for child configurations, and then dot test. So pretty much this is just getting the same thing, and let's just get the value because we're not going to be updating this. Once we run the game, if we just set it like this, then every time we needed to get test, we'd have to type test dot value equals, and then that would equal 20. Pretty much this would equal 20, or in this sentence, well, in this line, we're gonna set it to 20. Yeah, we're setting the test value to 20 pretty much in this one. But yeah, this is how configurations work. So if we're in a configurations folder, it's just better just to set it directly to the value instead of the test. So that was just to explain that. So how is this related to local functions? Well, pretty much local functions is kind of like the same thing. When you make a local function, we're pretty much just saving it into a variable. And yeah, when you think about variables, you could basically transfer variables all around your script. But the main difference between functions and local functions is that local functions cannot transfer above the line or below the line. Okay, I kind of messed that up. Below the line. So here, let me show you an example, because this is a bit difficult to explain. So we have a local function. We want to print I have ice cream. Alright, so we want to print this, and we want to call this function. So if we do ice cream on the top of the script, then it won't work. Okay, that's the thing about this. It's a local function, so that means it can only work below it. So ice cream, and you can see it's not red, but over here it's red. But the thing about the function is if we set this to function, then we do ice cream, it will not error because it's a global variable. You can use it anywhere around the script. Instead of just the bottom, you can only use it from the bottom. You can use it anywhere with functions, global functions. And functions, when you think about functions or how functions work, when we talk about module scripts, usually when you look in a module script, they'll have the function and they'll have like a given name to define the function. So they'll say maybe data store, and then they'll have like a bunch of stuff in here, and actually they'll make this connect to the module, and this basically just makes it so once we require it, this is gonna automatically connect to it so we can call the function, and then we can return something from it. So we can return maybe print hello. Okay. Data store wants to say hello to us, so let's call this module script. So we can where do we put it? Right there. Alright, but yeah, let's call this module script local module script equals acquire game.serverscript.module script. We could have done script.parent because this script is the parent of server script service, so it's the same thing, but it's alright. And then we could do module script dot, and then you can see right here data store, because it's a global variable. You can use it anywhere. But the thing about module scripts, it's transferable global variables. It's pretty much the same thing because you can use it anywhere in the script. You don't have to use it. You can use it, or you just have to use it when you require it. So you can't use it above it because that just wouldn't make sense. So if you use it over here, module script dot data store, it just wouldn't work. And even if we do this, but yeah, this shows no errors. But once we run the game, global variables still work from top to bottom, so it has to go by one time. I hope that's not confusing. It's kind of difficult to explain, but if we run this right now, this is gonna error. Okay, when we think about global variables, the global variables have to run down the script once in order just to define the global variable or the global function. It could be both a variable or a function, because we can have a variable which is, this is a variable, blue equals chicken. That doesn't make any sense, but here, let's remove this. This is a variable, and then this is a global function, blue, and then we'd have, and here we'll print maybe chicken, or we'll return chicken. Return chicken. These are global variables. Okay, maybe I should have said that first, but if you didn't know what that was. But the problem with global variables is that if you run down it once in a normal script, module scripts, they just run down once and they save it. But the problem with variables is that, let's go back to the old example, function, I think it was sandwich, and then let's print test again, then we'll call the sandwich. Okay, but if we call the sandwich above it without it going down the script first, then it won't work. Okay, so let's run this pretty quick, and we'll see that it's gonna error because we're calling it before it actually defines itself. So global variables have to define itself first before you can call it anywhere around the script, if that makes sense. And as you can see here, server script service attempt to call a nil value. And here, let's just copy this. Attempt to call a nil value. We don't need that module script anymore. So this basically means attempt to call a nil value because we're calling it before the function even defines itself. But say if we have another function above it, right? So let's say we have a function and call this call sandwich, okay? And then inside of this we'll have a sandwich, okay? And even though sandwich is on top, sandwich is a global function, so this is gonna work. But we have to call the sandwich, right? So we can do call sandwich, okay? Because this function might be below it, but it's a global variable. But pretty much we're calling it, and then we're going to call this function sandwich, and then it's going to print test. So let's test this out and see how that works. Okay, alright, so test, as you can see, it says test right here. So that means that it does work. So global variables, they work as soon as you go down the line once without identifying the variable above the function. So it has to, I hope that's not confusing. I hope again. Okay, never mind. Okay, but I hope this makes sense, you know. We have our configurations, let's just delete this. But local functions, as you can see, local function sandwich, it does not work above it, as you can remember. That's pretty much the only difference between the two. And then we got sandwich. So I definitely use local functions over functions. That's just the conclusion I'm trying to make. Unless if it's a module, then if you'd want to use global functions, which would identify different things like, and then dot pi, we could call this pi. Then we could call the module, and then we just identify pi. Then it will give us a new information. That's pretty much how modules work. They're just transferable functions, pretty much. But if we don't have to transfer and we just need some given information, definitely use a local function in here, just to give the script something. Here, let's call this text, and then let's return text. Well, no, let's return hello. And then we'll call the text. You see it like that. So if you need information for the given thing inside of the module, then use a local function. But the local function has to be above because it's a local function. It just wouldn't make sense if it's below. But definitely always use local functions when you can, unless if it's this scenario when you need this, or another scenario when you can't use local functions is for remote functions. So remote functions, pretty much remote functions is this purple thing. And if you don't know what remote functions are, they're you probably have to search that up on the developer hub just to learn what it is. But it's pretty much just a function, and then it returns something from the client to the server, or the server to the client. But so it's like transferable from back and forth, but it returns a function instead of just firing it once, which is what a remote event is for, which only fires once. But remote functions return something. That's the basic difference. They return something. So, but the problem with local remote functions, let's get it right now. Remote function equals game dot replicated storage dot remote function. Something else I've noticed too, you don't have to get the service of replicated storage if it's just right here, and you don't have to wait for a remote function too. There's really no point of doing that because it replicates. This is probably the first thing that replicates. Replicated storage will replicate it first because it's first, but then it goes to replicated storage. So you don't have to wait for anything in replicated storage. It's probably the fastest thing, one of the fastest things that load in. And then remote function, well, usually when remote functions are called, we'll do remote function and then pretend that we had another script that's calling it. So it would be remote function dot on invoke. Okay, this is what it would look like, and then we'd probably return like a given number, like pi. But actually no, this is the wrong thing, because if they're firing from the client side and then oh no, this is gonna be fine. Pretty sure, yeah, because they can't do anything that will tamper with the script. Never mind. So yeah, usually remote functions would give you information back and it would return the pi. And so yeah, I'm just basically explaining remote functions now. Okay, that's not good. But the point is, we can't do this. You see this line thing, errors, because the thing about remote invokes is that it has to be global because they're constantly listening to an invoke. If it's a local, then it can't be transferred, so they don't allow locals with remote functions. That's pretty much the point I want to get to with remote functions. So yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty sure those are the only things that functions are necessary for. Because, so pretty much let's make this equal to something. So function equals modules and remote functions. I don't think there's any other point to not use a function, because if you don't need a function to be global, there's really no point of doing it in the first place, unless if you're in that scenario for some reason, and unlikely scenarios. That's the conclusion we want to get. And then we'd have a local function. Local function is what you would use all the time. This is something we want to use all the time, no doubt about it. Local functions are definitely way better for your system because it's not going to be a global variable that can be listened to. And yeah, that's pretty much it. What else could I say? I think that's pretty much it about local and global functions. Definitely use local functions. I don't know why. Like when we look at a script from Roblox, let's go into Toolbox real quick. We'll look at the classic sword script. Classic sword. Maybe it's just called sword. Yeah, it's just called sword. And then we want to look at the sword. It's in starter pack. And then when we look at here, we can only see global functions, and I'm not sure why Roblox does this. But the thing is that it's transferable anywhere. So we look at check is alive. You can see check is alive. Check if alive is above the actual function because it's a global function. It's right here at the bottom. Oh wait, no. But if we make this a local function, check if alive, then these are gonna error, as you can see here, unknown global, because it's not above it. So if this was above, then right here, and also this one right here, you could do local function too, because this is just above everything else. Then it will work because it's above the script. But I'm not sure why Roblox does this, or why many scripts do this. They make global variables. I'm not sure why, because it's just not good for your system. You're making global variables which can transfer functions and variables above and below the actual function. It's just more work for your system to remember that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Always use local functions, yeah, no doubt. Look at this, they're using global functions. I really have no idea why. Like, but when we look at like, let's look at the dueling zombie. I'm pretty sure they didn't use it. I have no idea. But let's look at the NPC. Look at that. They're using local functions in here. But because the sword script is so old, I mean, when you look at the classic sword script, it's really old compared to the new zombie, the R15 zombie, the R-throw zombie. We're looking at this zombie right here. We're looking inside of the NPC script. And there's two modules too. It's pretty cool. And we can see only local variables. You see that? So because it's such a what is it called? It's such a popular thing. Well, not a popular thing to make global variables. It's just an old thing. Like back then, Roblox didn't have locals. That's why we see when we look at an old script, they don't have any locals because they didn't have it. They didn't have locals back then. Well, I'm pretty sure. So always use locals because it's just the new way to go. When you look at a script, you can see locals. You know that the script is good because it's neat. It's not. It's efficient. It's efficient for your system. Over here, they're requiring made. Made is kind of useless in this script, but made is basically a disconnecting operator. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Always use local functions. That's just my conclusion. You look at an old script, you're always going to see functions because it's an old script, okay? But definitely want to go with the locals. That's the way to go. Alright, so I'll see you guys later. I think I didn't explain too well this video, but it's all good. I hope you guys liked it as well. But I'll definitely might have to revamp this video because I did not explain it the best. But this is pretty much it. You gotta just remember this. And I'll see you guys next time.